Hey, what's up? This is Blue Cantrell, and you're listening to YouKnowIGotSoul.com.
Thank you for taking the time out for the interview. We appreciate it.
No problem.
I just wanted to take it back to the beginnings of your career. I read that you were originally discovered by Tricky Stewart, so how did that whole situation come about?
Well, it's kind of odd, because I met two people that introduced me to him. One was Usher, and the other one was a dancer. But I can't remember his name, to be honest with you, because it was a very weird how I met. I just met him. He just came up to me, and then he gave me the number to them. But I didn't even give Usher the credit.
Yeah.
So, and he brought me to them, and then we made a song, one song, and they originally wanted me for a girl group called 321, but after he said, well, let's go make a track. I was actually before I had met him, I was in a girl group called 8th Avenue called the lead singer, that was Teddy Riley and Blackstreet's group. And they had all broke up. The Blackstreet broke up, so they took all of the girls, the ones that they brought into the group, and took them with them.
Okay.
So the group, fell apart. But I was actually in Atlanta because my sister was in a coma from a very bad car wreck. And I basically bumped into Usher, like, randomly. And he actually, they didn't even know I could sing. But both of the two people knew the same person, recommended the same person. So I said, well, you know what, I might as well just go there and meet them. And then on a Sunday, I think it was, my sister had came out of the coma, but I was still under a lot of stress, and I actually was hoarse. But he said, well, you know what, I can't really tell from the songs you did with 8th Avenue how your voice is, so why don't we just try and make the song? And he played like 3 or 4 notes on his keyboard in the studio, and it was the weirdest thing that I'd ever experienced, because as soon as he did, I knew the entire song.
Wow.
The entire song came to me. I said, wait a minute, stop right there, and on the mic, and I went into the booth, and every word was made, I came from, the heart. I didn't write it down. I didn't, make the words and sit and think about it. It was all made just, off the top of my head.
Wow.
And by the time I was done singing, I turned over to look out the glass, and there was 10 people standing there, and there were like 3 of them were crying. And I was like, what's going on, So he said, we don't want you to leave when your family leaves, because my sister was going to rehabilitation, for her injuries, and my family was leaving to go back home. He said, we don't want you to leave, we want you to stay here, and we're going to record with you, and I'm going to get you a record deal. And I was like, okay, we'll see. It's not that I didn't believe it, but I really didn't even know Tricky, and I didn't know his work. I just liked him as a person and his family when they were all involved in the business, and I didn't come from a very family-oriented. I was kind of on my own, very young, so I was like, I wanted to be part of their family, and that's why I said, okay. I said, yes, I would absolutely stay and work with you, because I just love the way their family interacted. Their brothers were involved, their mother was, their father was.
Yeah.
And so the next day, it was probably 3 days, he was like, you're going to stay with me and my girlfriend in our house in Atlanta, in Buckhead, and he said, I'm going to call L.A. Reid, and I said, no, you're not. And he said, yes, I am. He said, now, whenever I call L.A. Reid, and every time I have called L.A. Reid, I don't tell him who it is or what they're about or what we have. He doesn't ask questions. He just comes. And L.A. Reid had just became the president of Arista Records.
Yeah.
And so he got on the phone in front of me and said, L.A., he said, hey, Hey, what's up, Tricky? He said, I've got something for you. I think you might want to come down here and listen before everybody else finds out. And then LA showed up the next day, and he asked him, he had played the song for him, but there were several people in the room, and some of the girls that worked there, and other artists, and he didn't know. He walked right by me, because I was a teeny little girl, I was 12, because for some reason I just look a lot younger than what I am.
Yeah.
And at that time I think I was 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. And he listened to the song, and he even through the first verse, and he said, "Wait a minute, stop the song." And he said to Tricky, "Play that again from the beginning. I cannot believe this." He said, "Play it again from the beginning." And he played it again from the beginning. And he got up and started moving his hands around, and he was like totally into the music. And he had staff members behind him with their dogs and computers and doing all these things for him. They were all wearing suits and running behind him. I was like, wow, is this really happening? And so he goes, who sings this? And he says, well, she's right over there. And I was sitting on the back of the couch, and there was two other girls with me who are singers too, but they said, which one? He said, all right, he started pointing. He said, pointing at who he thought it was. And he said, is that you right there? And she said, no. He said, no. And then he pointed at every girl in the room.
Yeah.
But me.
Oh.
And he says, there's only one girl left. And he said, her? He said, that voice came out of her? He said, yes, it did. He said, I don't believe it. He said, she's going to have to get up and sing it live. And he said, well, come on over. And I said, and he explained to him, listen, she just almost lost her sister, and she's got the flu, and, she's under a lot of stress, so she's been hoarse, she can barely talk. He said, well, you know what, just try your best. And I really couldn't talk. So he played the instrumental, and basically I stood over there next in front of it. It was a very small room, and all these people were packed into it. And I'm a very shy girl. At that point I was. I'm not, through my career I became a lot more open, but at that point I was very quiet and shy. And, I had never really sang a lot in front of, people. So I stood there, and he put on the track, and I said, just try your best. And I couldn't explain it, but I literally sang it better than I actually recorded it, and louder. And I stood there, and everybody he stood there with his mouth open, and I even did things I didn't think I did. Like, I pointed at him, and I lifted my leg off the ground. It was just like surreal. They told me what I did. I didn't even remember what I did.
Yeah.
So after that, they all clapped, and he said, please, we want you to sign with us. We don't want you to go to anybody else. And the tricky was, and I said, I would love to sign with Alistair. That's my dream label, because Whitney's on there, and Aretha Franklin, and that's who I idolize. And, I was, I'm young, and I don't know the business. So I was like, yeah, sure. And Tricky was like, oh, well, wait a minute now. Slow down. We got to talk about it first. And that's when it got wind of everybody else in the business, and they did, I think, 10 labels bid for 11 hours.
Yeah.
With all the lawyers, and after 11 hours, LA refused to let anyone win, so he was the highest bidder, and he threw in a 360 Modena Ferrari, so that was the icing on the cake.
Okay.
So he won. So.
Oh, cool. So, you mentioned that there was kind of a bidding war going on between labels for you. What was that decision process like? And looking back at it now, would you have done anything differently?
You know what? I think what happens to a lot of artists, and what I would have done differently, is I think that I believe that artists, when they get a record deal, I think that they should have an actual, in their offices, an education, like a class for educating artists about contracts and what they deserve and what not to let people do, because when you come in and you don't know, the business, people take advantage.
Yeah.
So, you would never think, people like this would, take advantage, but I can tell you 98% of artists have been robbed. And a lot of artists that I even knew, almost friends of mine, who were probably some of the biggest artists in the world or in the U.S., were taken advantage of and robbed, and, they didn't get the money that they were supposed to get. So I would say the thing that I would have done different is probably been more educated in the business, and then would have had, when they told me to take this lawyer, I would have gotten my own lawyer, because that lawyer ended up representing them, which was a conflict of interest. So they were all working together to basically take what was mine.
Yeah.
And nobody really knows the whole truth but me and them. But I was really taken advantage of, and I did most of the writing. And, they took all of my publishing, and took, the checks were coming in, and they didn't even I never saw any check. I've never gotten one dime from Arista Records. And, the first song, Upstyle, on the first album went, I think it was sold gold, so it sold 500,000 copies shipped automatically, because the source automatically bought it. And I would go into every retailer and speak to them personally, and they all bought records based upon the fact that I went in and shook hands and kissed babies and did the whole thing, and that's what you got to do. And then it sold, it went platinum, I think in a week and a half. So I just think if I would have did anything different, I would have wished that I knew what I know now. Then, unfortunately, we have to learn from our mistakes. So.
Yeah. So, you went to work on your debut album, So Blue. So take me back to that album and the creative process behind that album.
So Blue, you know what? It was really just, kind of just like feeling out. I don't think there was any real a structure or anything. It was just very easygoing, and ideas were thrown out, and it was just natural, and then it was a fun process. I don't really write. I kind of just scribble things down, or what I really do is, and Mark Pitts, who was, by Storm Entertainment, and he was the VP of Urban Department at Arista, he called me the female Biggie Smalls, because I would go into the booth and I would knock it out the first time, and kind of like any studio that we worked with was looking to make money, because, it takes hours to make the song, and I would go in and do it in 15 minutes. So it was like, the process was just basically me hearing the song. Well, I would pick out the songs. I would listen to just the instrumental with no voice. And we would go through probably we'd go to 20, 30, 40 songs. And I'd be like, no, I don't, that doesn't really, get me, and I don't really feel that next one. And I could hear just, a couple of seconds of it and be like, no. And then if I hear one, I go, yes. And then we'll pick that song out, and the emotion that I feel for that song, it's like, we don't wait later. I want you to play it right now. And I go into the booth and I sing whatever it is that I feel that song makes me feel, that comes out of me. And the melody is there. And then, usually I throw the words in, and then whatever words are missing, we just fill them in.
Yeah.
Because I'm not like, I never went to Berkeley or been professionally trained. I just taught myself, and that was the first time I had ever written. So my process is my process. Everybody has a different process, but I really don't write, and I'm not the type of writer that has pads and pads and pads and pads of lyrics. I just, whatever that song puts me in a mood or makes me feel, that's what I bring out, and that there it is. That's how it's done.
Okay, cool. And, of course, everyone knows you for your single Hit 'Em Up Style, but my favorite off that album was I'll Find a Way. So take me back to that song and what you remember about making that one.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, you know what? I was, where is it? Indianapolis? Where's Prince? And it's so long ago. Indianapolis, where Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Prince were at. That's Indianapolis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I get up to play, and it's like freezing cold, and I go into their studio, and I know they're with, the Time, Morris Day, and they've done Janet Jackson, they've done everybody. And I just remember seeing so many plaques, and I don't think they had so many plaques on their walls when I walked in, and I was like, how is it humanly possible that you've had enough time to have that many platinum plaques from we're going back 20 years, and I was overwhelmed. Their studio was like a basketball, court. It was unbelievable. And, I went in and they, what we did is they did really, what was funny because they didn't even know the process that me and Tricky did, but they did exactly what Tricky did. And I think that's what's most important. They sat down and they would talk to me and we would, bond, and they would ask me, what would you like to talk about or whatever? What is it that you would like for people to listen to, like, hear, or what is the message? And then we would have a conversation about it. And it was basically Terry that was mainly there. Jimmy that does Jimmy does another side, but Terry is more hands-on. And then there's the pianist who was absolutely amazing. And so you had the pianist there on a grand baby piano, and Terry was there, and he said, "I'm going to play you something, and you tell me if you like it, and I'll say no, just like I do tracks, and then we'll finally find something." But he played something, I was like, and then he played the second time he played something. They put a mic in front of me, and we sat in this huge studio space with the piano and him sitting there, and I would basically give the melody, and the melody came out of me for I'll Find a Way. And then, I actually said I'll Find a Way, and it was kind of like, mixed. It kind of meant to me because my sister was, they were, waiting for her to die. So basically this album was therapy for me to get out all of the feelings. It was therapy for me, but I wanted to be therapy for other people. Like, I'll find a way, to try to get over the pain. It wasn't just about our relationship, because I was going through a bad relationship breakup too, the loss of that, and almost the loss of my sister, because, she did die, and they bring her back. We never thought she would come out of the coma, and she did. So I think that album was a mixture of what I was going through in my life, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. So, and that's basically it. And then I went into the booth, and whatever words I didn't put in, we filled in, and that me and Terry, Terry Lewis did that.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. It just happened quickly. So.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was one of the best songs on the album also.
Yeah, definitely. And, moving past with that album, you had great success with it, and then you went on to work on your second album, Bittersweet. So talk about that album and the mindset you had going into this project.
Oh, Bittersweet, we decided that, it was pretty much Tricky, me, and LA. And me and LA were the final decisions for every song. I had a very major important part in the overall decisions in picking the songs for my album, which a lot of artists don't. So, if I didn't fit like it and I didn't want it there, it didn't go on the album. So, and not a lot of artists can do that. So, I learned a lot from Tricky, and Tricky is a brilliant producer, regardless of the things that happened in the past. I will never take away the fact that he is probably one of the best producers that I've ever been in contact with or experienced anything with. and so is LA. LA is the number one most brilliant man I have ever met in the music business. He has a gift to know that he can hear 5 seconds of a song and say that is a hit.
Yeah.
And so Bittersweet meant that, you know what, the first album, So Blue, was like I was coming out of being so, it was so hurt. But Bittersweet was like, I was, the second chapter to the first story. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was the second chapter. So I was moving forward from being just blue into being sweet, but a little bit bitter. So, I was still holding on to some of the things that hurt me, but I was progressing into a better place.
Okay.
So, and the process was pretty fast. It was much faster than the second album. And, I just think it really went smooth and fast. It didn't even take us 2 months. My albums didn't take long because we would sleep in the studio, and I wouldn't even go home. And my house in Atlanta was 5 minutes away. We would like get our food delivered, and we wouldn't leave. And there was a bed in there, and like a futon, and we'd fold it out, and we were like brother and sister, and we'd sleep on the couch, watch TV or whatever, and eat, and like sleep 2 hours, and like 4 or 5 in the morning we'd be up drinking like Starbucks cappuccino just to stay awake, and we would like wake people up and say, listen to this, and they're like, oh my God. And they, I remember the times he would call his brother or his father or his mother and wake them up out of their sleep at 4 or 5 in the morning, and say, you gotta listen to this. And they were like, wow. So, the process was very fast. I mean, it just, the creative, I think me and Tricky were like, it was like, what will I say? It's like freaking frack, or, like fire and water, fire and ice, like you can't have one without the other. When we got together, it was powerful. Like we were like a team, but we both had to, you can't have one without the other. It was just like a very powerful thing. When we got together, like the creative process was so powerful, and it was just, the chemistry was awesome.
Yeah, and then unfortunately the second album didn't sell as well as you may have hoped, so, why do you feel like the album didn't do as good as, you may have hoped?
Well, this is the thing. What, people aren't aware of that, but the second album sold past 10 million copies. But it didn't in the U.S. It went gold in the U.S. And it still was Grammy nominated for the best R&B album of the year.
Yeah.
So it did accomplish a lot. It did go gold. And no, it did not do as good as the first album in the U.S. But worldwide, it broke records because it was number one in so many countries that I can't even tell you how many countries it is, because I had been all over the world, and I spent 5 years touring just to see the fans that bought those albums. And I was touring for 5 years after, just off of Breathe, that one song, and there were several other songs that people aren't aware of that were, the top 5 songs in over the world.
Yeah.
So it broke records, and I think it actually, I know him broke Elvis's record for the most played on radio, but I broke Madonna's record in London, and I can't quote everywhere else, but I went everywhere from South Africa to Australia. The only places I wasn't able to go was Tokyo and China.
Yeah.
But everywhere else, I was.
Yeah.
And I was number one there everywhere at the same time.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because, Breathe did a lot better internationally than it did in the States. So, did that surprise you at all?
Yeah, well, you know what? At that time, I can tell you, at that time, I wasn't aware of it, but you know what? Ellie Reed was my mentor, and he pretty much taught me everything I know about the business, and I have the highest respect for him. And you know what? I don't think I've never met a person more amazing than him. But they had, basically they took him out. He basically was asked to leave. So, as president of, BMG Arista.
Okay.
And that's when all of this chaos happened, and there was a shuffle, and they weren't doing their work. And that's why there was really no promotion push in the U.S. that happened right when my breed was released.
Yeah.
And that might be why it didn't do as well there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But everywhere else in the world, it did. The only place it didn't go number one and go number one for 5 or 6 weeks, it would go 14 weeks in other countries, is because they took the man that made me who I am out of his power position.
Yeah. So,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then so, you mentioned that after that album, you went touring, worldwide. During that time, were you in the process of going into the studio and making a third album, or talk to me about that?
Oh, when I was touring?
Yeah.
No, because at that time, what happened was they had when they took LA out of his position, LA, immediately, and I remember talking to him and telling him, what, that's the biggest mistake they have ever made, because you're gonna, somebody's gonna snatch you up and you're gonna run something else, and sure enough, and see where he is now,
Yeah.
and basically, there was no talks of the third album because what the mistake they made, and we weren't aware of it, and I no longer wanted to be there anyways because LA wasn't there, and my loyalty was to him. And, while I was overseas, there's really nothing I could do about it, but I did talk to him, and I was aware that they had to renew, at the same time that they let him go, they had to renew my contract, renew the option to renew.
Yeah.
And they didn't, due to the process of trying to take all of these artists and put them somewhere else and take them to this label and Usher to here and to here and Avril Lavigne and Dido. All of this stuff was happening. So in the midst of all of that, they forgot to renew my contract.
Yeah.
So I was a free agent because they didn't renew it, because they didn't catch it in time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was actually a good thing.
Yeah.
So, there was no talk of the third album then because we knew what was going on, And, I basically wanted to be where LA was,
Yeah.
But, regardless, I just decided at this point that I am going to take control of my third album because, LA taught me pretty much everything I know in Tricky. And, I know more than most VPs and presidents of some of the biggest labels.
Yeah.
So, I was taught by the best. So, it's time for me to go out on my own and do it right. And I can honestly say that this is probably the best album I've ever made. And that, Justin Graham is one of the most amazing producers I've worked with. And I paid producers $250,000 for a song that didn't even make it to radio.
Yeah.
So, trust me. Like, I know what I want to hear, and he taught me how to know what, it's a gift, but fortunately, I felt I had that gift too. I just, I needed to someone else to acknowledge it and tell me that I did.
Yeah.
So, and then I thank LA for that.
Yeah, definitely. So, after your second album, you went touring, but as far as musically, you went on a little hiatus as far as recording. So, how do you know now is the right time for you to, continue with music?
Well, it's not really, it's not about me knowing what's the right time. It's the time that I'm ready, and I'm ready now. You know what I'm saying? I needed to take time. First of all, I spent a lot of time overseas, and I was living in London, and I needed a break and, to take time for myself because it takes, being an artist is a 24/7 thing. It's no sleep, no eating. It's a lot of hard work, and people think, they look at the video and it's a fantasy and, look how beautiful you are, it's so easy. It's not.
Yeah.
It never stops. Like, they'll wake me up at 5 in the morning and be like, you've got to be on a plane to go to Dubai right now, you know? And, this album is, I'm going off of how I feel and where I'm mentally at, and my gut is telling me now is the time.
Yeah.
So, and it has to be, something that I'm ready for, and I feel in my heart that this is the time, and I feel like, I'm so much more excited and anticipating what is going to happen this time around. It's so much stronger than the last two albums.
Yeah.
And every song I emotionally put myself into, you know what I'm saying? So it's more so, it's like, I want to be on my own and be able to say, this is me,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Just me and what I've been taught. And now, let's go. Let's get it done, I'm ready.
Yeah. So, with this new project that you're working on, because R&B has changed so much since you came out, what's the sound of your music gonna be like now?
Well, it's gonna be, you're gonna know it's me, because, I have a distinctive sound, that jazzy, eclectic sound that I have, that neo-soul, but I really can't categorize, I couldn't categorize hit 'em up style.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody could. That's why it was being played on so many radio stations of so many different types of music. I don't really like to categorize myself, because you know what? Most labels, they have a demographic for what type of people your record is, what type of people they're trying to direct your record to, or who's going to buy it. Oh, 35 to this age and this color, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? Everything they said, none of it happened. It ended up being loved by 50, 70-year-olds and 5-year-olds
Yeah.
all over the world. So it didn't, you know what? I feel like, this album, I can't put a sound on it. It's just so new. I think it's going to be groundbreaking. I think we are going to set a trend, a new style, and I can't put a name on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can work on it for you and get back to you and make something up, but I can't really tell you the style. All I know is it's new. It's you're going to dance. You could say it's dance. You could say it's R&B. You could say it's hip hop. You could say it's dubstep.
Yeah.
You can say those things, but it's all of the mixtures of and rock. It's a mixture of all of those things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I can't just give you like one category. And you know what? Honestly, I've never been categorized. And if you check out any of my interviews from the past, I'll say the same thing. So,
Yeah. Definitely. What kind of plans do you have leading up to your album?
what kind of plans? Well, we've got photo shoots for, doing shows, promotions. I mean, everything that it takes to get this out there and let people know that, this is the third album, and, we want you to love it just as much as we do, the process is a hard process, but it's a process that, takes a lot of work and a lot of determination, and we're going to do it. And I guarantee you, mark my words, this album is going right to the top.
Yeah. I asked that because, it's been a while since you came out with music, and, for a lot of music listeners, they'll listen to what's mainstream, but once an artist isn't on the radio anymore, they may not pay attention to them anymore. So I was just curious to see, how you plan on bringing back that audience that, listened to you back in the hidden...
Well, you know what? The thing is I don't know, you might not be aware, but my real fans, are loyal, and they are waiting. They've been waiting. And, they express that on the internet, and in so many ways, and they haven't forgotten. And I believe that, I'll pick right up where, I was before. But you know what? What I have right now is a step above what everybody else is doing, and it's, I think a lot of artists, it's not really about your voice anymore.
Yeah.
It's about the whole package, and how weird can you be, or what is she gonna wear? Is she gonna is she gonna have like a kitchen sink on top of her head and a purple and green wig and some platforms?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's no problem with that, and I don't knock it. And when I come out, I'm gonna be weird too, but it's gonna be my weird.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I just think that when you can't deny a good record.
Yeah. Definitely.
And when you hear it, you're going to have no choice but to like it.
Yeah.
And that's what, that's the only, thing I can really say about that. I mean, I'm not trying to, do what everybody else is doing. I will never do that.
Yeah.
You know what? I do what I want to do, and what I think is hot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so far, it has gotten me, there. But, you know what? People do miss me and are, there is, that mystery of where she is and what she's doing. And I think that when I come out, there's a lot of anticipation, and it will get a lot of attention, and there'll be a buzz, and people will be like, wow, So, and when they hear the music, they're going to be blown away.
Yeah.
So, and I don't even, I think I'm the same girl with the same face. I look exactly the same. There's no changes in my face, but my style has, evolved, and, it's eclectic, it's me, it's different, everything about me is different, but it's good, we all have to grow, and I think, everything happens for a reason, and if I would have came out 3 years ago, I don't think that personally would have been ready, and it might not have been the right time.
Yeah.
I believe that everything happens for a reason, and timing is everything, so now, it's the time.
Yeah.
So,
And do you have a tentative date on your album or an upcoming single yet?
No, we don't have a date yet. That's really pretty much up to my management and to Justin, and when they discuss it, and we have a meeting about that. But we are almost finished.
Okay.
So we're looking. I would assume like it's somewhere, right past, in the beginning of the new year.
Okay, sounds.
Maybe a little bit before that, but I can't really say because I'm not positive yet. But we're almost finished, but it's it's gonna, we have to do a lot of work to decide when we are gonna actually release it. So I really can't answer that with a 100% answer.
Okay, that's cool. And that's all that I had for you. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Well, I would just say that, that the one thing that, everything is going to be new and different, but the one thing that I have not, I'm a people person, and this album is not going to, they're not going to be disappointed because my album's about therapy, and it's a therapy for me, and then it's a therapy for others, and it helps people get through hard times and gives them strength to get over, bad relationships or losing someone or some type of pain or things that they're going through. So that will be there because that's what I feel like. It's not really my voice or the music that is my gift. My gift is trying to help people move on from that, and become strong from, situations that they're in hard times. So just, look forward to being uplifted, and and I think that this album will really, when you listen to these songs, they'll take you to a place, and make you feel good and give you strength. And I'm really proud of this album, and I believe that I don't believe, I am 100% sure that it is the best album I've made.